Hello, Ben. Hello, Alberto.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for that greetings.
And indeed, well, it's been a long way, and here we are at the last race of the season. Well, thank you again, Ben. This is the last race of the season, the Canadian Grand Prix, and this beautiful track, Montreal. And we will have a very familiar sight on pole, Grégoire Wassin, the champion, the championship that actually Gerard Rion pushed it almost to the finish, Alberto.
Yes, he made the most of his Lotus 79. And, it was for him a bit of a pity that Greg's retirement came in this last race when the championship was decided, because otherwise it would have spiced it up a lot the finish.
That's true. That's true. Greg only faltered when it didn't matter anymore, but still, we had plenty of good races and plenty of championship fights along the way. And this championship has been a success here at HSO. This is the last race, and still we have 23 drivers on the grid.
That's really a fantastic grid. I mean, people have been enjoying this season a lot. These cars are absolutely a delight to look at. It's really a great representation of them. We got from our expert modeler David Saber, and it's really been amazing to watch them in the track as they were back then in '78 with all these tracks, the ambience, and all the effort that our drivers have put. We have assisted to have witnessed some really epic battles. I mean, in our minds, we'll stay many of them for a long time, and thanks God, because we live streamed them. You can still watch them in the replays on YouTube. I can, for example, think of the battle between Jan Kowalski and Dana Schurer, and it was really amazing. Many other moments.
Yes, or Petr Lavak against Greg. You know, we had great moments in this championship. But don't forget, we already announced for next year we will have F1 1991, IndyCar 88, and the best of the Super Tourers here with the 1996 British Touring Car Championship. So a lot of action awaiting for us. Oh, and let's not forget the World Endurance Championship in 1982, and there will be some surprises there. But now going back to this race, we have Grégoire Boissin on pole, Gerard Rion is second, Vincent Perret is third, Petr Lavak is lining up in fourth, Jan Kowalski in the Ferrari is fifth, Michał Janak, one of his best performances here, is sixth in the McLaren, David Jakes is seventh, Mick Chapman and Philip Martinelli, the Arrows duo, 8th and 9th, Martin Lassina lines up in 10 with the Renault, 11th is David Young with the Brabham, 12th Yves Placé with the V12 Ligier, 13th Juha Boss in the other McLaren, 14th Didier Conjo and the Lotus, 15th Richard Coxon returning here in the ATS, 16th David Saber with the other Ferrari, 17th Michal Zareb in the other Brabham, 18th Emmanuel Haas in the Surtees, 19th Michael Drechler in the Wolf, 20th Konstantinov Zuov with the Surtees, 21st Jonathan Nasserquint in the McLaren, 22nd Simon Watman in the Tyrrell, and 23rd Sebas Vin in the Ensign. Now the drivers are lining up on the grid, and this race will be underway shortly.
So tense moments right now in this very high-speed track, and I think that the first chicane will probably be already a challenge for everyone.
Indeed. Starting signal coming on. Everybody wants to do good in this last race of the season. And we're off. And look, another 4-star from Gerard Rion. Vincent Grégoire Boissin shoots into the distance, and Vincent wants to overtake everybody down the inside, and he almost does it, but Gerard is able to cover it. So Grégoire Boissin leads from Gerard Rion in second, Vincent Brett third, followed by Petr Lavak, and Kowalski comes next, and let's see if everybody got underway cleanly.
And there you see the importance of having a good start, because Greg went absolutely problemless with through the chicane, while the other cars touched themselves.
Yes, and Raul Jareb is a confirmed retirement already.
Oh no, what a sad end. Raul and Janata both crashed here.
Oh, that's a shame. And that is Jonathan Esserkant the other retirement.
It's always a shame because these early retirements are always so bad after many hours of preparation.
Yes, it's never good to finish a race like this. But well, the race goes on, and for Greg, there's another leading race from the start.
We will be watching today very closely what Jan Kowalski can be doing with that Ferrari, because it's a very powerful car. It's a car that he hadn't had access to during the whole season. He was saddled with that Tyrrell that he made so good use of. And now that he has that powerful Ferrari engine on the back, we will be watching what he's able to do here in this very quick track that will theoretically benefit a lot that kind of powerful cars.
Yes, it will be interesting to see what they can do with the extra horsepower they have. And it seems that Gerard Rion once again is doing his bit of slow start, but slowly get up to pace, because he doesn't seem to be letting Greg fly away from him at this point. I was just looking here at the lap times, and yes, Gerard Rion is keeping the distance and is actually shrinking it now.
Yes, Gerard is always a cautious driver at the beginning. He doesn't want to get involved in problems, and that has been the case for most of the season. But then he continues to build up his rhythm, and you can certainly notice that because always by half race or towards the end of the race, he's always there, fighting for
and
the
Jan
top.
Kowalski, I'm sorry to say, Jan Kowalski just spun with the Ferrari, and he's beached on top of the curbs, and he made his teammate retire. He just his teammate retired. David Sayer
that's
is
really
without.
unfortunate.
David Sayer lost the wheel, and he's on the gravel. He won't make it out of there. So that's the end for both Ferraris on the same incident.
Well, the story we wanted to follow, but unfortunately has ended too soon and too sad. The
That is indeed
Commendatore will
true.
not be happy today.
No, I think they both will be sacked. And moving up the grid, Petr Lavac is now attacking Vincent Beretta. This is the fight for third, and Lavac again in a fine performance on the non-ground effects Williams.
Which is a car that historically would go on to dominate the end of the 79 season. And it meant the way up for the Williams team. Well, certainly they had good drivers in Clay Regazzoni and Alan Jones for that year, but I think that Peter Lavac is certainly making him proud, because what he has been doing with the Williams this year is amazing. And look there, how he went for the inside and overtook Vincent Beretta. That was a great move by him.
Indeed, a fine move, totally his style, and he's now up to third.
So we should be watching today, as I said, the most powerful engines of the grid, because this is really a power track. I mean, the ground effect cars, they have obviously an advantage everywhere, but their advantage shouldn't be that big here, because at the low speed chicanes, those ground effect don't work that well. And what you really need here is a bit of grunt in the engine, the top for those long straights. So we will be watching Yves Placet, who is right now with his Ligier putting pressure on Michal Janak. And we should also be watching another powerful car that was on the way up, also for that team in season and in the following season. That is the Renault that Martin Lassina is driving.
Yes, the Renault, but he's having troubles with it. He just went on the grass, and Juha Boss is overtaking him. I guess the Renault is really a handful to drive, even on this track.
Yeah, the thing is, there are many slow turns here. So while the Renault is very quick once the turbo kicks in, and in the straights, it's amazing the speed at which the needle goes up to the red zone. The problem you have is that coming out of these very slow turns, it takes some time for the turbo to kick in. And during those vital tenths of a second, the other cars are always getting the best of you. They are always overtaking you or getting better traction. All of a sudden, the turbo pulse kicks in and you have wheel spin. So yes, it's not an easy car to drive. it was not a very mature car in the, but it certainly is quick at the end of the straights.
Yes, because even now Martin Lassina was able to stay in front of Juha Boss, because down the straight, the power of the Renault could easily overcome the Cosworth of Juha here. Now we have some fights here down the grid. For example, Michał Janak. If we go to Michał Janak now and Yves Placé is trying to overtake Janak here, and Yves is driving the V12 Ligier. So he has some power that you were talking about.
Yes, it's also a car that sounds really beautifully. I don't know if our race director can give us some onboard shots with Yves Placé, but the sound of that engine is absolutely amazing. It's one of the best sounding engines that have ever been in Formula One. And well, we certainly can enjoy that for a bit, because it's one of those sounds that has never come back to Formula One, because those big 12-cylinder engines are no longer useful, because they had that big fuel consumption and they don't match well with the rules that came later. Ferrari, I think, was the last one to hold on to those 12-cylinder engines.
Yes, the famous 1995 Ferrari was the last V12 in F1, and we have Simon Wattman joining the list of retirements, unfortunately. But this is shaping up to be a battle between these three drivers. We have David Junt in the flat 12 Brabham, Janak here driving the McLaren, and the McLaren's that sports a different livery in this race. And then Yves Placé in the Ligier, and look, Yves is now attacking Michał Janak.
Well, like we were saying, two very different 12-cylinder engines there. Now that the Ferrari have retired.
Sorry to interrupt, but Yves was able to go around.
He made it with a great move on the inside.
And now Mick Chapman seems to join the fight.
Mick Chapman, who is driving the Arrows, same as Philippe Martinelli, who we can see some yards behind him. Both Arrows are there, both teammates. In this case, it's Mick Chapman in front, whereas we are used to see some great drives by Philippe Martinelli, who is usually in front.
Yes, Chapman seems to be in an inspired mood here today, and he's being the leader of the Arrows team so far.
We will see how the battle between the V12 in the Matra and the opposite 12 in the Brabham develops. Will be interesting, because both are very powerful cars, great sounding cars of a bygone era, and both in the hands of very capable drivers. You can see both David Junt and Yves Placé sliding them out, coming out of the turns with that big power.
Yes, one thing is for sure, these F1s don't go straight all the time. And look at this, Janak doesn't seem to give up, and he's still in striking distance towards Yves. And let's see if Junt can get away, or if he will start to fade, because it's not easy to control that Brabham. And Placé is getting closer and closer.
In the last lap, at least, David was quicker. Yves Placé has been steadier in 139s, always coming down in some 10s. But David Junt did his last lap all of a sudden in 138.7, which means he has certainly some speed there waiting. Oh, and he has spun, yes. He took too much of that curve.
Yeah, the Brabham is hard to drive. Now he spun and he lost quite a few places. He's down in 11th now.
There is a lot of engine friction in that car, and therefore if you are reducing gears too quickly, it can easily happen that the rear locks. So you combine with taking a bit too much of that curve, you can easily see yourself sideways, as it happened to David Junt. Fortunately, he doesn't seem to have suffered any damage, so besides his pain for his pride, he will not be suffering much more.
Yes, this promotes Yves Placé to 6th, so he's now in the points position. Mick Chapman is in hot pursuit now after getting rid of Michał Janak. And Yannick is falling into the clutches of Richard Coxon, who has been going up the field.
Driving, well, that very poor car that was the ATS, a car that his very own real-life drivers didn't like a lot, even if this was a theoretically more evolution version.
Yes, although I would venture to say only in theory, because the car didn't get many improvements in performance even in real life.
It was aesthetically more pleasing, but certainly not more effective.
Well, that I have to hand it to you. Yes, it's a much prettier car. In the front, Grégoire Guassin is still leading, Gerard Rion is still second, Lavac is third, Vincent Brett is fourth, David Jakes is fifth in the privateer Lotus, and Yves Placé is now sixth as we...
An accident with retirement for Martin Lassina. That's very sad.
There goes the Renault again. And indeed, almost mirroring the real season, Renault didn't have much luck this season here in HSO.
So the field has been cleared up considerably. Now there's only 17 cars run, which I must say is anyway not very unrealistic for this track, because despite it not being in theory too complicated, it always seemed to have had a lot of attrition.
Indeed, the Montreal racetrack always proved to be a hard track on the entry list, but still 17 drivers running, and Coxon is not making a big impression on Yannick so far. He's inching closer, but slowly.
We should be watching David John, because he has showed how much speed he has in that Brabham, and he should be able to catch up with Richard Coxon and put a fight to try to recover some possessions. That Brabham is continuously sliding. It's certainly very difficult to keep it on the track. David Jones is doing there an amazing job.
Indeed, he has to use all his talent to keep the car on the road, and he's trying to catch up with Richard once again. He overtook Philippe Martinelli, so now he's back in 10th. But I guess he will have to be more careful with those curves if he doesn't want to repeat his stunt.
So he went back after the problem in the previous lap to 1:39s, but that's also the time that Richard Coxon has been doing in the last lap. So it seems that despite having been in front before that incident happened, David Jones is not really being able to keep that rhythm that he had before. Maybe the Brabham has somehow pulled his confidence, the car, with that odd behavior. Oh, there he goes out again. He certainly doesn't seem to be enjoying that ride today.
No, and unfortunately, one of our newest members, Sevas Vin, is also retired. Suspension damage. Yes. So these walls, as in real life, proving to be hazardous for the drivers.
Yes, and Sebas was already a lap down, and I think that was down to the fact of having a damaged car. And now that he has retired, well, it has become evident that the car was totaled. So Greg was leading, and he has put already 13 seconds on Peter Lavac, who is now the steady second qualified, while Gerard Rion is 15 seconds behind the leader. That's 3 behind Peter Lavac. Peter Lavac has made his way up, overtaking Gerard Rion, and is now trying to chase Grégoire.
Yes, once again, so much action here that we lost that important moment, but Peter Lavac is really pushing it, and I wonder if he will be able to put Greg under a bit of pressure here. Still, it's an amazing work considering that the Williams is not a ground effects car.
But somehow the behavior of that car seems to be very sweet to Peter's driving style. He has always been doing great performances with it. We know Anyway, he's a quick driver, a very good driver. But there is one of those situations where the magic happens and the driver seems to be really one with his car.
It seems so. I mean, he had great performance this year running that car. Oh, and Philippe Martinelli's yet another retirement with suspension damage.
Oh, we were talking about the attrition of this track only some moments ago, and there goes another one. Very, very uncharacteristic from Philippe Martinelli, I must say, who is normally a very steady driver who works very concentrated. So it's now on the bottom of the grid. Emmanuel Hassen and Konstantin Subov, both with that Sartis TS20, who are driving the closest in the field.
Indeed, this might prove a good race for some of. I'm sorry, this might prove to be a good race for some of the back markers, because if attrition goes on, who knows?
Well, for the moment, the last points-paying position is in the hands of Yves Placet, who seems to be quite secure there, and seems to be having a good ride today in the Ligier. Because looking at the car, it seems quite steady. He will probably have found a setup that works well for him. Because we can watch how he goes through the turns, and the car seems fairly stable.
Indeed, and look at this. Vincent Peretta is now becoming under pressure from David Jakes here.
As well as Mick Chapman under pressure from David Junt. Seems to be going up and down with the Brabham.
So we have a few duels here going on. Richard Coxon is also attacking Yannick.
is also retirement now with suspension damage.
Ooh, these walls are really creating victims here today by the handful. And look at this, Coxon is really close to Yannick now.
Now we'll see. Because getting there is one thing and getting through is another.
And look at this, he's trying to attack on the hairpin. Ooh, but he wasn't quite close enough. But the hairpin is surely, among the Formula One history, a privileged place for overtaking. So Richard tried his luck, but no luck here this time. And he actually fell back a bit. Let's see if he can close it back again. I'm pretty confident he can. He's really attacking those curves. I don't know if he wants to keep doing that, or else he might taste the wall that so many tasted so far. And look,
and we see at the background the other battle that is developing, because David Junt is almost catching now Mick Chapman.
No, Mick Chapman just blew his engine, so he won't be catching Mick Chapman. He already passed Mick Chapman. That's what I was going to say. His engine is out. So
well, I must say, sorry to interrupt you, because David Jakes is also putting a lot of pressure on Vincent Peretta.
Yes, it's another duel that goes on. And David Jakes is trying to get that fourth place that Vincent currently occupies.
So down to 13 cars now, in only 11 laps. More than one car has been falling out per lap.
Yeah, especially considering that we didn't even reach 20% of this race. It's just 12 laps of 70.
And David Jakes is really putting pressure on Vincent there.
Indeed he is. Ooh, he's so close now. I think he will try something. Yes, Vincent made a mistake. So David Jakes is on the inside.
In this case.
Ooh, Vincent doesn't want to budge, and they touch, and Vincent goes off the track, and David is through.
Well, it seems the pressure paid off.
Indeed it did. David Jakes is now fourth, and we shall see if he can make a dent on the distance that separates him from Gerard in third.
Meanwhile, Richard Coxon is back to business, trying to overtake Michal Janak. Whoa, and he almost got him there, but he went to the grass, and he has been able to control it in the last moment, but he lost there a lot of time.
That was unfortunate for him. But well, nothing is lost. Like I said earlier, it's still a long way to go until the end of this race.
Yes, as long as you don't get damage from those terrifying walls, be able to continue. And if he had indeed more rhythm than Michal Janak, we'll have another chance in this race. This is probably also the main reason why this track has so much attrition, and that it's surrounded by walls that are very close there. So the slightest error means you go into that slippery grass, and from there on, it's only the hard wall there.
Yes, this is almost a street course, never mind the bits of grass that are there, and it's proving to be as hazardous as the other street courses we had, like Long Beach or Monte Carlo. But still, 13 drivers running. Our friend Emmanuel Haas still running around with his Surtees, and he's actually chasing Michal Drechler in the Wolf there, so they're fighting for the last position here.
Both have been already overtaken by the leader, who is now getting closer to the 11th classified, who is Didier Conjot in the other Lotus.
Yes, Greg boasts the 13.
David John just blew his engine.
Oh yes, there goes the engine.
There goes another 12-cylinder barbecue.
I guess maybe he pushed the revs too hard on that thing, and it went boom. So that's the end of that, and that's the end of the Brabham team in this race, because Raul Jareb never made it to the end of the first lap. So we are now down to 12. And like you said, Greg Arguassin is trying to... Oh, and Didier Conjot, he went out and he crashed into the barriers, and he's smoking, and he retired. Greg Arguassin was just putting a lap down on him, and maybe he got nervous, I don't know, but he just retired of the race. This is almost unprecedented, but I guess everybody wanted to do well in the last race, and they are tripping over themselves.
Well, the track's been really intimidating for a lot of drivers here. So we're now down to 11 cars running. Like you said, as long as they are able to stay on the track, you never know if that could pay off with even a point.
Exactly. I mean, I was just mentioning Emmanuel. He's almost in the top 10 position at this point.
This is certainly not the rule, not the general rule, but it's not something that we haven't seen either in the real Formula One. And I can remember that podium by Olivier Panis, I think it was in Monaco, who made it with a Prost to the third position. And I think there were only 4 cars in the race.
I think you're mixing it. He won the race. He actually won
he won the race, yes. But there were only, I think, like 4 or 5 cars in the race at the end.
Yes, it was. I watched that race back then. It was a.
I also did, but you have better memory than me.
It was a big attrition race. Big attrition. I remember vividly Damon Hill blowing his Renault engine inside the tunnel, which was something rare, a Renault engine blowing. But then that's that.
It was the only race that Panis ever won. As Ben points to us. So it's 11 cars in the grid now from 23 starters. Not even half the field has made it to the 21% of the race.
Indeed. So it will be. Well, it will be a managing race for everybody else involved, because with less drivers, the distances tend to grow between each one of them that are still on the track. So now
yes, the closest cars now are Richard and Michal Janak, who are packed 4 seconds apart, because it seems that Michal didn't like the pressure that Richard put on him. Set up to put some distance between them both.
So it seems. And Richard, yes, Richard is enjoying here his comeback, and not doing bad for himself so far, considering the car he's driving. So let's see if he can keep the pressure on Janak, and Janak is also doing a good race here.
And right now our top positions, that's Greg Wasson, has 14 seconds behind him Peter Labak and 24 seconds behind him Gerard Rion. And this is a situation that would seem to be comfortable, but in fact it isn't for the driver, because when you don't have a reference, when you don't have a car that is close that you want to overtake, it's too easy to lose concentration, to lose focus, and make an error. So it's now a race for those that have mind that is on the right place. I think one of the masters there is Greg Wasson. He rarely makes any kind of mistake. He's a very good, not just very quick driver, but also very good in endurance races. And we will see how the other drivers are able to cope with this mental toll. That means seeing an empty track in front of you.
It is. Yves Passet can surely take up the pressure, and he can surely manage a rhythm as fast as he can without crashing or without making mistakes. He's one of the best drivers out there, that's for sure. And
we already saw him in the endurance race do it single-handedly, 6 hours driving. Well, he wasn't able to finish, but he was doing a 6-hour race single-handedly in his own car in the Cadenet, I think it was.
Oh, he was driving the Earth, and he retired with
yes,
with brake problems, which was a thing that affected quite a few drivers, because I think people weren't ready that they also have to manage the brakes.
Yeah, that's endurance racing after all. I can remember well in many endurance races how they changed the brake pads, and not just the tires and the fuel.
Exactly, and that's one of the good things of the mod, the VLM modified mod that we are running here, is that indeed you have to manage your car. You cannot just go around and driving like it's a sprint race for 6 hours.
In any case, we will be having a lot of that next year. So the drivers better learn to do that management. Because we will have a series of exciting sports car races, endurance races, that will be run as opens in any case, which should make it much easier to find a teammate, or even to decide to ride them solo, as Isplace did.
That's true. And like I said, there will be some surprises for that championship. We are working on some, let's just say, new additions, and we hope to have some good endurance races here with all those features of a good endurance race, like managing your car and your tires. And well, the first endurance race we had this year with this new mod already proved very good, with an unexpected ending and fighting until the end.
Oh, yes, it was. So meanwhile, Richard Coxon seems to be on the move. He has sped up his freedom also, and is now only 2 seconds behind Michal Janak. Maybe he now is more confident. Maybe that's also probably the ATS, having lost some weight due to the fuel, has started behaving a bit more predictably, or at least a bit more as Richard likes it. But in any case, he's lapping now 0.5 of a second quicker than Michal. Let's see what happens when Michal notices it, and see if he has, let's say, the margin to react to that.
Yes, well, it will be an interesting race for them. At the front, Greg is still with 15 seconds of an advantage over Petr, and Gerard is already 30 seconds behind. I guess this is not Gerard's day, and unless we have some surprise on the tire department, this race might be locked at the front.
Yes, it's not normal that Greg makes any kind of error. And normally Gerard is also quite a steady driver. Which is not good news for the guys that are behind, hoping for some points.
Yes, and the guys who are behind are David Jakes, who is in 4th, Vincent Barrett is 5th, And Yves Placé still sixth with the Ligier. This might be one of the best performances of the Ligier this year.
Well, it certainly would be well rewarded with that point because it's very deserved. And Michel Janac seems to have gotten the message from Richard Coxon because he lowered his lap time last lap to below 139s, 138.9. In the case of Richard, he was anyway able to go quicker because he did 138.8. So it's getting closer, not very quickly, but certainly getting closer. And the good news for Richard is that Michal noticed it, so he's feeling the pressure, which is always, of course, something that could benefit for Richard if he's pushed into making some kind of error.
Indeed, I think Richard is hoping that's indeed the case, because that McLaren seems to be at least quick enough to keep Richard at bay, at least now. The blue McLaren, which is a rare sight. This was a special livery for the overseas Grand Prix, the Löwenbräu livery in this case, a livery that became very, very famous during the IMSA GTP years.
That's right. And in this next lap, Michel hasn't been able to pass his own 138.9. He went back to 139s, while Richard Coxon made some kind of error and went to 140. So the distance has in fact increased. I think that both of them were pushing for different reasons, of course, but in the end it backfired a bit for Richard.
Yes, something we didn't mention yet is that it's very fitting we are having the last race of the season today, at the same day that it was the last race of the real F1 season this year.
Oh, there goes another error by Richard. He jumped over a curb and he lost some more time there.
Yes, it's so easy to make a mistake here, and you lose so much time if you do over those big curves.
Well, Formula cars are obviously running very low, very close to the ground. And that means that anything that upsets the suspension or lifts them in the air is normally not welcome.
Of course, these drivers not having the luxury of driving aids or anything like that the modern drivers might profit of.
So not a good lap this time, neither for Michel Janac or Richard Coxon, but the difference seems to hold on there. The difference that has instead decreased is between Vincent Beretta and David Jacques, because Vincent seems to be wanting his fourth position back, and he has been speeding up and is now on the toes of David Jacques.
So that's interesting. Maybe David Jacques' car is not getting better as the fuel burns out or as the tires wear, and Vincent seems to be able to reel him in now.
I would think there has also been some kind of error from David Jacques because his last lap was 2 seconds slower than the average he was doing till then. But yes, it could very well be that the different fuel load is making the car less predictable or the setup less efficient. You have to remember that these cars start with a full tank of fuel, and that's a big amount of 4 liters of weight, and they get lighter and lighter as the race progresses. Yes, which are now also very close to Michel Janac. They are coming to the hairpin. And Richard did a quicker pass to that hairpin. And as long as he has the slipstream, he should be able to hold on much better there behind Michel.
Oh, this is the thing, right? Even at the distance, a race like this always gives us intriguing fights.
Richard
will be
is
interesting
really
to
taking
see.
some chances there with the curbs.
Oops, sorry. Yes, he is, but he is so close now. You can already taste it, and you know what that does to a driver. He will tend to risk more.
Yes, the smell of water, of blood in the water, is always very exciting. And Michel Janak must not be comfortable at all with this pressure that Richard is putting on him. It would seem that Michel has a bit of a better traction coming out of the turns, but in the braking zone, Richard is really getting much closer to him. And there he goes, light error, but Richard wasn't able to capitalize.
No, he was on the inside. He wasn't able to put the power down soon enough, and Janak was on the outside, so he could. So Janak stays in front. And look at this.
In any case,
Richard
it seems
really...
that Richard must have more wing, because his car seems to be certainly much quicker through the apex.
It seems so, especially considering it is an ATS after all. Look at this, look how fast he came out of that chicane, but then he just doesn't have the speed to try to run Janak down. Once again, look, oh, he's trying on the inside. That was a great move there. He squeezes Janak and he's through. Richard Coxon is through to 7th. Ooh, now he makes a slight mistake there. And let's not forget that Janak is really quick down the straight, so this is not over yet.
It was a really good move by Richard, but you must also recognize that you can't pull that move on everybody. And I think that Michel did also a very good job of being well aware of what was going on, giving him enough room.
Yes, Janak is doing a fantastic race today. He's on a great form here, and I don't think that maybe Richard will be able to just run away as he might wished, because I think Janak might up the pace just a little bit to stay with Coxon, but we will see.
And remember that as the race progresses, the fuel load will again change, as will do the grip of the tires when they degrade more. So it could very well happen that because of the differences in setup, we see that Michel's car speeds up later in the race. Meanwhile, at least David Jacques has been able to shake the pressure from Vincent Beretta again. And I've been watching David a bit. That Rebac Lotus 78 seems to be having some kind of traction problems. All the season he has been having it. But once that he has been able to get more comfortable with this situation, it seems that he has been able to put some distance with Vincent Beretta.
Yes, so I wonder if he will be able to, but they seem to go back and forth, but they are never too far away from each other. And who is getting far away is Richard, who seems to be pulling away from Janak.
There he goes past Michael Drexler, driving today the ground effects Wolf on a discrete race. So
someone spun. Or no, not spun, but I was hearing distinct screeching noises, and I guess Janak just locked his brakes to put Drechler a lap down.
Could happen. So, as I was saying, Richard knows that right now he's 8 seconds behind Yves Placet. What he probably doesn't know is what kind of lap times Yves is doing. He just did 139.1. But probably Richard is going to try to push for some laps and see if the difference decreases, to see what keeping the effort. And if he's guided by the results of this last lap, he certainly will find it worth it, because he gained 1/10 of a second on Yves. But as we just saw, that seems to be thanks to be really pushing his luck.
Oh yes, pushing his luck is the right expression here. And we all know what happens if you do it too much.
So it's again still 8 seconds between the both. Oh, and there you go. Nah, Richard pushed too much. I would venture that he got some slight damage there. We will see if the ATS is affected.
That was a hit, and quite a nasty one.
So it's true, and one must recognize that this ATS has proven in past races in the hands of Jakob Fredriksson and our drivers to be a really tough car.
Yes, and let's not forget that this newer model didn't seem to be a big improvement whatsoever. I mean, Fredriksson and the others didn't do much better with this one. Ooh, and now Richard made a big mistake. He locked up over the grass and he hit the wall.
And he lost the front wing on the hairpin.
Yes, he hit the wall there. The car just veered on the outside, and then he lost the front wing.
It's just very lucky that it happened at pit entry.
Yeah, he went straight to the pits to get repairs, and let's see if he will come out, but he will lose a lot of time. And I think at this point he will only be able to fight with Janak's teammate, which is Juha Boss, that is coming now to overtake him. And I think he will be able to eventually, because it takes a long time to fix these cars. So Janak can now breathe a bit in his 7th place that he inherited once again from Richard. And Yves Placé is now running quite comfortably in 6th at the moment, and he's only 12 seconds behind Vincent.
Yes, I was just comparing their lap times, and well, Vincent can do certainly much quicker laps. He did 1:37 some laps ago. The problem is that he's not being constant at all, because the next lap was 1:40. Then he went down to 1:39, then 1:38. While Yves Placé is doing steadily 1:39s. So if Vincent starts getting uncomfortable with the tires or makes some kind of error, it could be that Yves can capitalize from that.
Indeed, that we are not short of errors here today. I mean, Richard Coxon is a confirmed retirement with suspension damage, so I guess the car was too far gone. So he joins the list of retirements, unfortunately.
And it's interesting that all the retirements seem to be behind the point position. That means the drivers that have points today are really being greedy of them. They're driving as secure as they can, trying not to take any unnecessary risks. Even Michel Janak, who is now secure after Richard Coxon's demise, has been doing very steady 140s, which is good for him, but no way a time that can bring him closer to Yves Placé, who seems to be one of the steadiest drivers of the field.
Let's not forget that this race is not even halfway through, and we only have now 10 runners. Emmanuel Haas is in the top 10.
That's right, 39% of the race is only complete. Some drivers are already 2 laps down, as we can see, but indeed, well, still a universe in front of them, because it's 60% of the race, and we don't know what will happen when the tires start really degrading.
Yes, that's still something that we need to see, and given how mistakes are punished so heavily in this track, some important things can still change. One thing is for sure, Lavac is not letting Greg run away. The distance is still around 15 seconds. It's been that all race here. So Greg cannot afford to just relax too much.
So we have some reactions on the forum. David Jant said, "For Christ's sake, I blew an engine again." He shifted back to 3rd at the first chicane and saw flames spitting out of the back. It's really a pity. he couldn't push the Brabham into the top 10 during qualifying. And well, he seems to be no longer any part of the top drivers here anymore. By the way, he says he's not doing it well at hot laps. But I think that's just a matter of getting really used to these cars again. He's been off this Formula One for some time, and it's normal that you can't expect to return, especially with such a difficult car as the Brabham, and do well immediately. Jan Kowalski, meanwhile, says the Ferrari was feeling very nice here, but he did a misshift and well, lost the rear. While Jonathan Athercliffe recognized he had a hardware issue, and he was sensing small input slack, and finally had a slide in the second chicane, corrected it, and the input froze in that position and sent him to the wall. To a real hardware problem. Greg Guassen right now lapped the 7th classified, Michal Janak. And if he continues at this rhythm, we'll soon see his own tail in front.
His own tail. Well, that's something hard to chase here. And in the meantime, it's interesting that Gerard is just 9 seconds in front of David Jakes. So they are too close to comfort there.
It's probably that David Jack's car is right now at the sweet spot, the setup, because he's not having as many traction problems as we had been seeing some laps ago. Car seems to be much more planted. But like I said, we need to see what happens when the fuel consumption further evolves, because it's so big, the fuel that these cars needed to do the whole race without pit stops, that the behavior, the handling really changed a lot during the race. So what you see right now might not be representative at all of how the car will behave towards the end of the race and the lap times it might be doing.
Yes, and let's not forget that there is a case of honor trying to do well in this last championship. So, people will be on the lookout, and it proved to be costly for some of them already. I mean, I think I never saw so many suspension written in the retirements list this year.
Yes, that's correct. And engines, we also didn't have that many engines blowing, I think. Because some of the cars that have been listed here as suspension, I saw them also smoking from the damage.
Yes, that was not a common sight. Although, if you go too over the revs like David Junt seemed to have gone, this can indeed happen.
Yes, there's always a big danger when you're downshifting to get over optimistic. Either kill the engine or, well, simply lose the tail. And Requasen is now coming close to Yves Placé. He's going to lap now the 6th qualified.
Indeed, he's he's lapping the points standing drivers already. But then again, that's not a big surprise if we watch the whole season and the kind of rhythm that Greg is able to.
User disconnected from your channel.
That Greg is able to impose.
It's really intimidating. We did run this season again. I think that we should put him in SRTs or something like that, because otherwise there is no competition for him in this situation. I know
user entered your channel
that this will not be in any case fun for Greg, because while he will certainly appreciate the challenge of driving against himself, of being able to keep the car on the limit for that many tracks, there is nothing like a good fight. And Greg is also probably not just a very quick driver, but one of the most gifted drivers that we have here when it comes to wheel banging with another car. And it's a bit of a pity that we have been deprived of that spectacle, because we have been seeing some really nice fights that we commented earlier, but we have not been able to see Greg Wasson doing a really good fight, except in some occasions with Peter Labak and such. And I can tell you, I've watched him race many times, and seeing him with a driver whom he's paired with in terms of car and handling and skill, it's really amazing. I mean, you could watch them for hours.
Here, F1 races will be broadcasted again. We know that Greg probably will enter, as well as some of our other regulars. So expect some great battles with cars looking a bit more modern next year.
Hey guys.
Hello, Jason.
Yeah, I'm going to be broadcasting those F1 91 races next year, the full schedule. And I'm, as you say, that should be some really epic battles. Really looking forward to covering that.
Yeah, it's a matter of hoping that the drivers will land with the proper car to make the most of their skills, so that the field is well balanced, which is always an objective here at HSO.
Well, you cited in the broadcast earlier Hlavik and how well he gels with the Williams. Sometimes you just have a driver who just gets on with the car really well, and hopefully we'll have a situation like that. But yeah, that part of it is the stressful part, trying to get everybody, in a car that they're happy with, and it's not easy when everybody has their idea of what they'd like to drive and try to make the field as even as possible. So, but we got it done this year for 78, so we should be able to get it done for 91 too.
Well, I don't think that we will be seeing Peter Labak again in a Williams next year.
No.
That would be too easy for him.
Yeah, that would be way too easy.
Unless we gave Greg Wasson Ayrton Senna's McLaren, which I think would honor the car and the driver a lot. But
Yeah,
who knows what Greg could be able to do with that car.
You'd have to hand out no-dos though to the broadcasters so that we don't fall asleep, because he'd just run away and hide from everybody. But I've been watching the broadcasts up here in actual Montreal, and
and Yves Placet's in the pits.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No,
this
that's
is
all
a
right.
big development
No,
here.
you guys covered
Yves
that.
Placet he just pitted. Wonder why.
I'll let you guys cover that. Catch you later.
User disconnected from your channel.
So yeah, that was Jason, in live from Montreal, actually. But yeah, Yves Placet is in the pits. I don't know if it's fuel or something else.
In any case, that puts Michal Janak in the points position, which I must say would be very well deserved if he ended like that. And let's watch what happened to Yves. Because he doesn't seem to be repairing any damage.
No, I didn't see him crash into anything. So maybe he's trying some strategy of changing tires. Who knows?
Maybe, but I would say that given the lap times he was doing, if he had been running with only half a tank, he would probably have been much quicker. This is really strange. We should be waiting for the after-race report to see what really happened here.
And he's out. He's down to 8 at the moment. He lost quite a bit of time. Yes, he lost quite a bit of time, but we will see if he can make some time up, because I'm sure he must have changed tires there.
Well, maybe it was, as you said, a strategy thing. He knows that the tires would not last the race well, then why risk it? I mean, you can go take the same risk if you try to do this stop and drive comfortably than taking the same risk but with worn tires.
Yes, and look that he stopped almost dead in the middle of the race, because we are now at the middle of the race,
Yes,
halfway
correct.
through. So it really all points out to a strategic move here.
And being 2 laps down, it's actually the real middle of the race for him.
Oh yes, he spun, but he's rejoining.
That's very weird.
Yes, it seems to be a cold tire issue, but that didn't help his cause of trying to make up that lost time.
Well, if this was really a strategic move, this only indicates that we could be seeing some really, really big problems with the tires towards the end of the race for the other drivers.
Indeed, so that's exactly what I was thinking. I wonder how the tires in everybody else will fare, because if Yves was convinced that the tires wouldn't last, some people might get into trouble sooner rather than later.
Watching now Greg Wassen's lap times for an indication of the tires eventually giving problems. Well, it's true that Greg is not really much representative of that. But in any case, all his recent laps have been very steady, ever getting quicker. And in 1:36, which is an absolutely mind-blowing rhythm with that car. Certainly being the quickest on the track. He's been lapping in 1:36 from, I think that's 25 laps already. Really amazing.
It is indeed.
That's really some rhythm.
And if you look at the podium, like Lavak is still only 16 seconds behind Greg, but Jard is now over a minute.
Well, Peter Lavak has been doing some 36s in the last laps, which is an indication that he probably had the same rhythm as Greg Wassen in his pocket, but he's not willing to destroy the tires just to try to catch Greg. Not just because it could be problematic or difficult. I mean, maybe only wishful thinking to catch Greg, but what good is catching Greg if you arrive there with completely worn tires?
Indeed, this will now be a battle on the distance between who can manage the tires better at this point.
Well, 16 seconds is in any case not a lot. So if there is some kind of error by Greg, or if his tires suddenly really get completely destroyed beyond his amazing capabilities to even drive on worn tires, we could see some drama towards the end of the race.
Well, Lavak is doing his best to keep that rear under him, but his car slides a bit here and there always. So I wonder who will be able to keep his tires alive for longer. Of course, Greg's car has ground effects, and that pushes the tires more. But then Lavak has to deal with a car with less downforce, so he might be more vulnerable to worn tires.
And as our race director points us, Greg is now about to quickly find and overtake his own teammate. So as I predicted, it was not long ago until he saw the backside of another shadow.
Indeed, and
It's
we
the
have,
chicane.
of course, with the Yves tactical stop, as we suppose, Yannick is now promoted to 6th. So Michał Yannick in the McLaren is in the last points position, and he's followed by Juha Boss in the other McLaren, which is something funny because it seems that the last few races the McLarens always ran very close to each other, no matter who was driving them.
That's right. So as I predicted, it seems that Greg Wasson has already overtaken the other shadow from Vincent Beretta. So it seems that Greg, like Lucky Luke, is even quicker than his own shadow.
Quicker than his own shadow, pun intended, I suppose. And well, Lavak is now falling a bit behind. I guess I was watching him for a while, and he was having a hard time controlling his Williams. So maybe the tires will get the best of him from now on. But we are still only barely past the middle of this race, the halfway point here, and we still have 33 laps to go, so still a long way, and things can change dramatically, like you said, as the fuel and the tires go down. And look at this, Juha Boss and Yves Passet are fighting now, and Yves went around Juha Boss quite easily, I must add, because, well, his rhythm must be something else now that he changed tires. Yes, he's down to 37s, so he's considerably quicker now than he was before.
Yes, certainly. Those tires must have given completely new life to the Ligier, especially now that half the tank is empty. And considering that, because of having that big V12, this is a car that probably needs to even put more fuel aboard than the V8s. So getting rid of that kind of weight must have been a relief for the car and now for the tires.
Indeed, and yes, it seems that now Lavak cannot keep the rhythm anymore, and he's losing almost a second every lap to Greg. Now it's 18.5 seconds, the distance. Still, Yves Passet has quite a bit of a way to catch Yanak, because that stop was costly, time-wise.
But with so much of the race still to go, certainly not a comfortable situation for Michel Janak. And remember, he's defending a point, the finish. So, well, he must not be right now, despite what you would think, the luckiest man of the track. He must not be feeling like that at all. In Michel's last lap, his last laps have been 140s, while Yves Passet has been doing 137s, 138s. So it's about 2 seconds he's gaining on Michel on each lap. And the difference between them right now is not represented in our times table, but Yves is 1 lap down to Michel Janak, which means he should be about 1 minute and 50 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, that is too much, I believe, even for him to recover. Unless Yanak goes into deep trouble with the tires or with mistakes, I don't see that happening.
In any case, it will be much more comfortable for Yves Passet to race till the end of this race than what will be for Michel if he doesn't change his tires.
Well, that's for sure, especially considering the car he's driving. I would think that he would be able to impose a comfortable rhythm all the way to the end, while everybody else will be really struggling coming the end of the race.
Greg Wasson doesn't seem to give any sign of his tires being fading. In fact, he has done the quickest lap so far, 135.7, 2 laps ago. The next lap, he was 1 second down. He probably was already satisfied with that. He didn't push it too much. But, well, his performance is certainly intimidating. He just put Peter Labak a further 5 seconds behind. They were 14 seconds some laps ago. Now they are 19 seconds apart.
Yes, Petter lost a few seconds in his last laps, and we still have to see if that will be a trend or if Petter will be able to bounce back. But I think it will be hard for him to keep up, especially because if he starts to get in trouble with his tires, I think he will just grab a second place, then just try to keep pushing and maybe risk a retirement.
So meanwhile, David Jacques is hunting Gerard Rion, only 2 seconds behind, and he seems to closing in. Gerard Rion has done his last laps in high 138. David Jacques, in turn, has been doing 137, 136. So that means he's reducing the gap. Gerard Rion has probably noticed it already. We will see what his reaction is. Now David seems to have lost a bit of ground, the absolute difference, but he's still there. It wasn't due to an error. Probably Gerard has sped up a bit in the last turns.
Well, that was quite an awakening. But
And not a pleasant one.
Yeah, but David Jake seems to be having a lot of trouble putting the power down there. I guess he saw Gerard fading away again into the distance and he tried to push and it costed him.
Yes, it seems to be the story of this race. As soon as someone feels that he's having a bit of an advantage and is closing into the car in front, he starts pushing, and sooner than later, we see some kind of error. I mean, the cars are very light here on downforce. The wings are normally in a very, very down position. So to have as little drag as possible. But that makes, of course, the cars very delicate, very unstable. They are not nearly as easy to push down to push forward at the limit. And we see how David Jacques is really struggling with the car now, with an amazing display of control, but certainly not going that much quicker.
Yes, that's the problem. You fight your car more, you actually go slower. So I think some people will maybe back off as this race progresses, because at the point where there is no point, if you're not making any ground and you are risking a retirement in every corner, you will just settle for it. Although some drivers have a really hard time doing this.
Yes, it's like we have said many times, it's not easy to hold back when you are watching the difference with the car in front reducing. You are here, that's normally not just because you like cars, but also because you are competitive. It's a too tempting bite to ignore.
Yes, and if we notice the distances, I would venture to say that if Greg keeps going at it like this, he will lap everyone except Petr Lalak.
Well, that could be the case. Greg is a very competitive guy, and it wouldn't surprise me that he just set that as his own challenge in this race. But in any case, in the last lap, he was a bit slower. I didn't follow him. I'm not sure if he found the back marker or whatever, but he was for the first time in many, many laps in 137.
Yes, and speaking of speaking of next year again, like Jason said, the F1 races will be broadcasted. But I think there was a big movement about in the forum about our other new championships. Of course, the British Touring Car Championship, at least I know that in Europe, was very, very popular at the time. It was represented in video gaming at the time, so the enthusiasm that was around that particular championship didn't surprise me. But it was nice to see the enthusiasm around Kart 88, the 1988 Indy cars, which, well, it's not something that outside of the US or North America is so famous, but we had a lot of people interested in that.
That's right, and I think that there are many reasons for that. First and foremost, the USAC season has been a very welcome novelty this year. We have had lots of participants in the races, which was not as usual here when it comes to oval racing some years ago. And I think that many drivers here have discovered that oval racing is very different to road racing, but actually can be very much fun. The second reason is that IndyCar 88 is displaying the golden era of IndyCar. We all know how Nigel Mansell in the end crossed the pond in '93 to drive there for the Newman Haas team, and that already tells you how in the late 80s and early 90s the IndyCar was really highly regarded worldwide. There was a point when it was about to compete with the Formula One in popularity and number of viewers, and TVs struggling to get the rights to broadcast those races. So it's an era that is really amazing. Porsche was there. It will be there in our field, the famous March Porsche, and it clearly indicates how important the championship was back then. I think that by now we have many American racers here at the HSO, which has also contributed to the appreciation of that sport. And in the next years, we will be seeing here, not as it was once attempted, a separate section that is HSO Americas, but instead a split of the championship in that we will always be having some kind of American racing here. And it's very important because being a historic racing league, we think that probably the two worlds that combine here, both America and Europe, represented historically the two pinnacles of racing. So we will be having a good representation of those two very different worlds of racing, and giving our drivers the unique opportunity to experiment what it was in both cases, which is something that fortunately we can do in sim racing, while the real drivers didn't always. I should be giving way to you, Ricardo, because we see that David Jacks is really on the move to overtake Gerard Rion now.
Oh, he is. He's getting closer and closer.
Only 1 second apart right now.
Let's not forget this is a fight for third place, so podium position is at stake here.
Yes, it is. And there has not been any dramatic happening in the last laps. It's simply that David Jacks has been able to put a higher rhythm than Gerard. Half a second here, almost a second there, but enough to get him much closer, even if he is, again, taking some chances.
He is. I mean, look at the way he rides those curves. He's really attacking there.
Well, he must be...
Ooh, Gerard is letting him through, actually. It seems like it.
It was weird. I would have expected Gerard to put up a fight.
That was strange. Maybe Gerard acknowledged that he's having trouble and didn't want the pressure of having David behind him. Or maybe he missed a gear there.
I don't know. Knowing how calculating a driver Gerard is, and seeing what Yves Placet did by stopping in the middle of the race, and how Gerard has been having a rhythm that is actually not as quick as you would expect from the Lotus, it wouldn't amaze me a lot if both Gerard and Yves are well aware of what will happen to the tires towards the end of the race. And Gerard simply said, okay, I don't want to have trouble with you right now. You are coming now on a hike. I will let you through, but I will catch you later.
It might be the case indeed. Gerard is indeed buying his time. He knows too well how hard it is to drive with worn tires, and he raced many of these races from the front to know how long and how well his tires can last. So maybe he knows that he has to keep a certain pace and a certain rhythm to make to the end of the race without any problems, and that's what he's doing. And it's incredible that David Jakes is still hammering those curves as much as he can, and he seems to be flying out there.
Well, as long as the tires are admitting it, that's okay. But we will see what happens towards the race. And we were talking some moments ago about next season, and about, our variety of racing. And I should say also that at the end of this race, there will be an announcement of an open. So we will have a thread going up, not just of the USAC race, but also of an open.
Indeed, it is true. It is true. So keep your eyes open to yet another unique event here in HSO being announced right after this race. And speaking of the race itself, it seems David, well, he got a bit of distance from Gerard here. But we will have to keep an eye and see if he can pull more of a distance or if Gerard will just keep him in sight. You know, like waiting for maybe a next opportunity to attack.
Well, I can tell you that Gerard's lap times have been quite steady, all those last laps. So, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me much that he just fixed himself a rhythm that he knows can bring him home safely with his tires, and is saving any attack or any attempt to recover the podium for a late moment when David Jacks has maybe his tires destroyed after the effort.
Yes, I mean, he's surely going as fast as he can. His car language says so. He's riding every curve, he's sliding in every corner, so he's not saving his tires at all at the moment.
Yes, and why would Gerard, knowing that, want to put up a fight with David, that the only thing that could happen in that fight is either have a shunt, which would be the worst case, or in the best case, destroy the tires unnecessarily even more. It was probably for him not the moment to be fighting for the championship, for the podium position in the championship.
Well, but a podium position is a podium position, and I guess David wants it badly.
And Greg Wasson did again a 135.8. Probably was already bored of having to conserve tires. Gave himself that kind of relief.
Indeed. Well, I would think that now that we are roughly 20 laps to go, that Greg can now impose the pace that he wants if he thinks that he has the tires to go for it. And he will. And it's interesting to see that David is 2 seconds ahead of Gerard, but he doesn't seem to be able to pull out more than that. So Gerard is indeed keeping him at a safe distance. And now David Jakes made a mistake. He made a mistake. The rear stepped out just a bit too much, and Gerard is now suddenly a lot closer.
Yes, looking at the lap times, you can see that David Jacks has been much more irregular than Gerard Rion. It's clearly an indication that he is pushing the car to the absolute most that he can. While in the case of Gerard, his steady lap times indicate that he has probably still maybe half a second in his pocket. And indeed, in this last lap, Gerard Rion went down a full second from the previous lap and from the rhythm he had been having. So, like we suspected, he has something stored there for later use, and he simply is not willing to attack or defend a position right now when it doesn't really matter. Yes, Gerard Rion, last lap also 137.9, previous lap was 137.6, while he had been doing high 138s or low 139s in the previous laps. So you can see that he had a full second up his sleeve. He just let David Jacques go in front to destroy his tires. But listen to this. Now watching David Jacques' lap times, and it seems that David was indeed also hiding a bit, because he also did 137s in the last laps, in the last two laps. Of course, in a much less controlled manner than Gerard did, but maybe he was not the only one who's pulling there some kind of bluff.
Yes, now David stepped up his pace once again, and he's keeping Gerard at a distance. It's amazing how they rotate the car there at the last hairpin. It's really, really hard to put the power down in these cars.
Well, in the state the tires will be by now, it will be even more difficult, that's for sure.
Yes, they are not doing any favors here to the tires. And it's interesting because we had so many retirements there early in the race, but we stabilized with this 10 cars running, for now at least. And we shall see how it evolves until the end of this race, but at least for now, it's not any different from some of the other races we had.
Well, it's a top 10 for everyone right now. Maybe that's what makes a difference in motivation. You are in the top 10, you are more conservative. If not, you're taking more risks.
Yes, it's all about reaching those objectives, right? If you are in the top 10, you think, okay, I'm in the top 10 position, so I want to keep this, or I'm in the podium position, I want to keep this. It's all about the expectations you have and the objectives you have when you start the race. And let's give some honorable mentions here to, once again, Emmanuel Haas, because he's been a new addition to HSO, and he started in this championship. And once again, he's proving that, if anything, he can run to the end of races. Once again, here he is, keeping his own business and in the top 10 position and going for the finish.
That's right.
And that's a good thing in HSO. I mean, if I can brag a bit about our league here. For example, I was talking to James from Pretend Race Cars, and I mentioned our Indy 500 this year. And I said, oh, we had a full 33 driver grid. And he, with all his experience in other leagues and in iRacing, he asked me straight away, oh, so, but how many retired after 5 laps? And he was very surprised when I said, well, none. Because, or only one, I think, because, you know, the level here in HSO is very good. We have committed drivers, we have drivers at practice that set up their cars, that are here to race a good race, and they have a decent levels to start with. And we must remember that this is a very good thing to have, and we should all be proud of the effort that we put here, both drivers, organizers, illustrators, everybody that is involved in preparing the mods, preparing the tracks. You know, this is a big achievement, and is an even bigger achievement if you look around and compare it to the remaining landscape of the sim racing genre.
Yeah, that's right. it's really sad how the Simracing scene has been divided by the different modern, so to speak, sims. Assetto Corsa, iRacing, all those have made their own leagues and niches, and it's a pity because the community is so much spread, and without really a sim that we could say is cutting edge is really what everybody needs. Something like what R Factor represented some years ago. So the future is really uncertain for this hobby of us, at least for the historic part of it. But in any case, we will be here trying to fill that niche. We will continue to produce historic content and to enjoy it as long as there are people who enjoy driving with us.
Exactly, and let's not forget that the British Touring Car Championship will feature a mod that was converted, upgraded by us, new physics, etc., etc. The Kart 88 is a completely new mod built by the HSO team. It has laser scan models, mind you, so we are on the cutting edge of that. And it is really, really, at least in my humble opinion, a really good mod to represent the era and the genre. And let's not forget, of course, all your work, Jason's work, etc., etc. In these new tracks, we have new historical tracks that we can race these historic cars in it, thanks to all the work of all the people involved.
Yes, right. It's a big effort. We continued that during the year, but I must say it's very rewarding when you see grids like the ones we're having here in Formula One and USAC and that. It's great to do this all for you guys.
Yes, and let's not forget, of course, the new edition this year of these broadcasts. I think people enjoy watching themselves race. People enjoy watching their friends race. So, like Jason announced earlier, this is an effort to continue. We will bring every F1 race live next year. We will try to do the same with Kart 88 and the other relevant championships, so that you don't lose a bit of the action both inside the track and outside the track.
So Greg Wasson is about to start lapping now the podium. He's coming close to David Jacks after having dispensed of Gerard Rion some laps ago. We will need to find some competition for Greg. Let's see if we could try to lure Greg Hutu to come into this league.
Well, believe me, I was trying to get James and the rest of the people involved here next year. I'm still trying to do it.
Well, those are real aliens. I can tell you something. I have no idea of what would happen if Greg Hutu, James, and the guys from PRC Cars came here. But I can tell you that I suspect that Greg would destroy them on a real track because, as you guys know, he has real racing experience. He is a big fan of extreme activity.
Yes, it's true. Greg has real racing experience, at least in this genre. I know for a fact that James from Pretend Race Cars, he raced in his local track this year. He raced saloons around an oval track.
And quite successfully.
Yes, he almost won the championship, and there are some other people there involved in real racing that I would really love to see here. But of course, everybody's invited. You know, we have here some big names from other leagues racing here. I mean, Junt is very involved in other leagues. I know Matthias Weber also, and they race here. They enjoy racing here. We have big fields, big competitive quality grids.
User entered your channel.
And I hope that we lure even more people here, because we know that we are running R Factor 1, but anyone who will try or tries our new content, our new mods, is surprised by the quality of the work done, and especially how competitively we can race and how realistically we can simulate these old races. And that's the important
that's the reason that we stick with R Factor 1. It's not because of stubbornness, but simply because we can provide high quality content as we want it. And that's a reason to keep it. As soon as we have something else that is better at hand, you can be sure we will move to it.
Exactly.
guys.
Hello again.
Hey, yeah, Alberto's absolutely right. The fact that we're sticking with our factor one with a lot of what we do, or really all that we do right now, is mainly driven by just what works at the moment. But he's correct. If another situation presents itself that's better for what we do historically, recreating races, then yeah, we'll go for it. But at the moment, this is the path that yields the best results for us.
That's
not
right. We
only
would love to do a transition to our factor 2 somewhere soon. But it's always the same with this, that we had been commenting that there is some historic content, for example, for Assetto Corsa, but it's a sim that it has too many problems. We are not happy of what we can do with it. While in the case of our Factor 2, there is not enough historic content for us to completely move there. But we should be doing some races somewhere not in a far time with our Factor 2. It's just that we want historic content and quality historic content. But we are keeping an eye on the evolution of our Factor 2 with the new team that has taken control of it. And we hope that if they are up to what they promised, if they really allow easy conversion of our Factor 1 stuff, it can very well be the future for this league.
Yeah. I was just looking at the forum, and we've had 2 new people register in the past 2 days, simply and I guarantee you, a lot of it has to do with the broadcasts we've been running, the fact that we try our very best to organize things well. In spite of the fact that we're running an older sim, we still
Well,
have
I
new.
can tell you something, data that is probably quite representative. We have here in our forum the statistics at the bottom, and it says most users ever online was 204, and that was the 6th of October of this very same year.
That's amazing.
204
yes. So
people online, registered users, looking at the forum, browsing, looking for races.
yeah, that's like I said earlier. That shows that we are indeed here filling a big niche, an important niche, and we provide good racing for sim racers who are quite honestly and sadly starving for them at this point. And we are very, very proud to continue doing this through the next year with with the quality program that we announced earlier. And mind you, not everything is announced yet. We'll have open races. We will have maybe other championships at the end of the year. So keep tuned, keep here, and we will see my 2 estimate colleagues here, Alberto and Jason, a lot on and off the track next year too. Isn't it right?
Oh yes, I'm very much looking forward to Card 88 because, as you guys pointed out, that is the IndyCar series at its absolute best. It was an excellent time in the series history. There was lots of involvement from a variety of chassis manufacturers and engine manufacturers. It'll certainly be interesting to run that series. And from a broadcaster's point of view, the 91 series ought to be really hotly contested. But I'd like to point out that none of this really is possible if people don't actually show up. And we've had incredible grids all year long, surprising a lot of people, especially in the USAC series. If I had told you that we were going to get like 25, 26 car grids consistently with oval racing in a European-based league, I don't think.
And it's such difficult cars.
Yeah, I don't think most of us were expecting that, and so it's been really fantastic to have the participation.
Just to point out that Juha Boss now stopped, I think probably for tires. Maybe he thought it was too risky to continue, and he's on the pit. And that Greg Raguasa indeed lapped everyone except Petr Lavak at this point. But if we are making this rundown, maybe people at home are wondering why we are talking so much about the future. It's because this is the last race of this big championship, and it's really important for us to stress and to show we are here, we are committed. We have a lot of new, exciting things coming up. And like Jason just said, this is due to the participation of everybody. We are very inclusive. We don't play favorites in this league. And I can say so myself because I got a warning for crashing against the driver already. And so we like everyone that likes historic racing, that wants to be part of historic racing. It doesn't matter if you're fast or you're slow. That's not important. What's important is that you drive fairly on the track, and you are here to participate with us. And we have been very lucky, like I said earlier, to have a grid of people who practice, who take their time to learn the track, and who are actually competitive in a wide range of speed in our races, because no matter where you are on the track, you always have someone to fight with, and you always have something to look forward to.
The other thing that, I mean, I've seen this a couple of times this year, but just seeing two drivers in particular on the track at the same time. Pascal Mikola, who's one of our more enthusiastic participants, who's, I believe, 16 years old, maybe 17. And then you have like Bob Wilson from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who's 77. There's a 60-year gap between those two. And I've seen races where they both run together, and, you know, it's just like, wow, you know.
Boss is topping in the track or going very slow.
Oh no.
No, he was letting drivers by, I think.
Oh.
Now speeding up again. No, he's still very slow. Well, I don't know what's happening. Maybe he was just seeing that many other cars were coming from behind, and he just wanted to let them safely. He's closing the field now, so no point in making anything stupid, but he's really slow. No, he's speeding up again. Yeah, he probably was letting them simply by.
He doesn't want to take any risks. He doesn't want to be on the way of anyone. You see, this
Well, that's
is exactly what
the
we were
point of
mentioning.
what you were saying a moment ago. That's what our drivers
Exactly.
are like. We'll be doing anything stupid. Like in other leagues, you can see things like lapped cars trying to race the leader, things like that.
Yeah, I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen that in HSO. People are very respectful.
And if they are not, we are here to make them so.
Yes.
Jokes aside, the system we have implemented, of course, there always needs to be something. Don't think that we implement the system of penalties sometimes just to be annoying. It's not. It's just that, especially for newcomers, it's important that we really propagate this kind of behavior on track. You know, it's, Juha Boss is entering the pits again. Something
Yes,
is wrong.
our race director, Ben, just pointed to me that the wheel seems to be wrecked. His wheel is indeed slightly turned while the car goes straight. So it's very likely. No, he's coming out. That was a great maneuver. He just did that to let the leaders go by. He probably has damage in his car. So he's simply trying to stay there for a top 10. But he's not able to go really quick.
Yes, I guess now he will only run to the finish, and it's not far away because our leader is only 9 laps away from the checkered flag at this point.
Our leader just put another lap on Yves Placet, who I took some differences some laps ago, and he's more than a minute behind Michel Janac. So his gamble, if it was of changing tires to try to be quicker towards the end of the race, it seems that it finally didn't pay off.
Well, that is unfortunate, although I was wondering if Janac seemed so slow now, because I was looking at him.
He was letting Greg Wasson by, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, Janac, if he finishes here, it will be a point for him, and that's a very good performance, considering
a very well-deserved one,
track.
I must say.
Oh yes, he fought for that one. He fought indeed very well for that one on the racetrack, and people around him faulted, and he didn't. So he fully deserves his point here today.
Yeah, Mikael Yannick, a GPL champion from years gone by, and really has adapted well to that McLaren.
Indeed, and speaking of that, Jason, I know you are very excited also, maybe more than you could think of earlier, about our endurance races.
Yeah, when we ran the Castrol 1000, it drew a good amount of people, and the race ran very cleanly, and people were very happy with the way it turned out. And there were a lot of people who we hadn't seen on the forum in a while. But it's funny how when you have one of these endurance races, people seem to just come out of the woodwork and go, "Ooh," and then they all show up. So there's clearly a lot of enthusiasm for that, and we're going to try to cater to that more in the coming year. So I think that's a positive for next year, because it does
Indeed,
take
it
a very
is.
it does take a very specific skill set to run those races. You can't be running qualifying laps the entire way. You have to pace yourself. You have to be willing to work with other people, and not all people are predisposed to that. So it's a challenge in a variety of ways.
And calculate well the fuel load.
Oh yeah, I know all too well about that.
That was mean, Alberto.
Wait,
But okay.
way to rip that Band-Aid off, Alberto. Thanks for that. Thanks very
Well,
much.
that's a skill you
Yeah.
need when you go endurance racing, you know.
Well, I'm going to run our next.
It wasn't intended to be a blow below the waistline.
I know. No problem. Sometimes the best way to learn things is to learn them the hard way.
Actually,
Yeah, for
you
those
gotta
of
wonder
you,
sometimes if the human being can learn otherwise.
if you at home don't know what we're talking about, it's because in the 1,000 Castrol of kilometers in Kyalami, Jason here calculated the fuel just a bit wrong, and they ended up having to stop one extra time, and of course that's against the rules.
Yep.
And he lost a possible podium position.
Yeah, and after 6 hours of racing, that was really not fun. But next time I run an endurance race, it'll be top of mind, and I'll make sure that we have enough fuel.
But the good thing about this all is that this is something that has actually happened to real teams. And I mean, it's great because the recreation of the races is really that good. I mean, we do the same errors sometimes as real teams,
Yeah.
and we suffer the same fortunes, which is exactly why we love that much this kind of racing. We are not trying here to invent a racing league, something that is fantasy or like that, but we try to go through the same challenge that the real drivers did, of course very far away from the dangers that they endured, and this is our kind of homage to the guys who really drove these cars and did all these championships. It's our admiration for this historic racing that brings us to do this. We really enjoy it. I know there are many drivers here who simply are here for the competition. That's okay. That's very good. But for many of us, this is really a way to show our respect and our admiration for the drivers who drove these very dangerous cars from the past, and for the incredible feats they achieved.
I went to the Gilles Villeneuve Museum a day or two ago, and in the gift shop they had a Gary Bettenhausen Lola Buick.
Oh,
and I was reminded of the contribution that he made to the USAC 73 mod.
that's right.
Yeah. So the history aspect of this league is definitely, it's what makes this it's what makes the league go in a lot of ways. So, well,
yes, and I think you're going to say we're getting to the end of this race.
Yeah, we're getting down to the end here.
It's 5 laps to go now. It seems victory won't get away from Greg at this point, although Petrolavac is still valiantly only 23 seconds behind him. So that was a massive performance from him.
Gerard Riol seems to have lost sight of David Jacques, who was able to conserve his tires at the end. Gerard Riol,
Indeed, it
who
seems
I
so.
must say is again one of the drivers that shine very especially in endurance racing.
Yes, it was a great performance, a great show put by him and his team in the race, and it was really the rears of the car starting to slide a lot here now, but it was really exciting to see that there was drama, there was fighting, there was uncertainty about the results all the way to the end of those 6 hours, and I think everybody was very excited. We have a very good field. And that's why we decided to repeat that even in more races, because we are doing this for everyone involved, and everyone involved seemed to love it, and they asked for more, and so we get them more.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's happened in the past where we've run open races during the season, and they're almost like a litmus test to see what people like or don't like. And we've done that before with other mods to see if people are interested in them. And if the feedback is positive, then we may turn around and do more of that the following year. And that was the case with this. It was the case with F178 when we did the international trophy as an open. That's kind of the way. It's almost like open races are like a test bed or a proving out of an idea of something that might work, and then the following year it's expanded upon. So that's worked well for us, I think.
Yes, indeed, and of course we will be bringing the best of the best here to the table always, and expect, if you liked, all I can say is that if you liked our work lately, expect even better things when you try these new cars. I mean, I know that some of the people here already tried, and I know that Jason and Alberto were very excited about the prospect of running these new series.
Well, I must say I'm not a big fan of front-wheel drive cars, but when I tried those Super Touros, I was absolutely delighted. Yes, they are fun to drive, and they really behave like what you see in the videos. Probably the challenge of driving them is very similar. Oh, and Peter Lavak, look at that, he spun.
Oh,
Oh,
no!
he got away from the terrible curves that could beach him, at least that. And he kept going now, although his car is smoking a bit. So maybe the temperature went up while he was on a standstill.
Doesn't seem to have any damage.
No, he doesn't. Maybe
Coming to the
his tires are
now,
worn
and
out.
David Jacques, what's the difference with him? No, the difference seems to be still pretty big. David
No,
Jacques.
it's too big. He's almost a lap behind Petr here, so I don't think he will be able to profit from this. But Petr seems to be really, really struggling with tires now.
Going across the finish line right now. Yeah, that's really must have been really upsetting for him. So close to the finish.
Yes, he lost 45 seconds with this. Ooh, you see his car is snaking very, very much. I think he will have to drastically reduce his pace, or else he risks having another accident here.
Yes, but that's always a delicate thing to do, because it's very easy to lose focus when you get out of the pace you are comfortable with. That's one of the marks of the best drivers, is certainly that ability to change rhythm.
Yes, and not panic when these kinds of things happen.
So at this point, well, I don't think obviously that Greg Wasson will be able to lap Peter Lavak, but by now probably Greg's biggest achievement is to get the Lamborghini next year in the Formula 191.
Well, the Lamborghini. Maybe so, maybe not. We will see.
I still wonder what would have happened if McLaren had actually gone with the Lamborghini engine after that
In
one test.
1993, you mean?
After that one test they did, that could have been a very interesting combination, and instead they went with Peugeot.
Well, what they gave Andretti and Senna certainly wasn't very competitive.
No.
At least with the Lamborghini engine, it would have sounded much better.
Yes.
That's true. And at least they maybe would have gotten some development, which they didn't that much. And that, I think that was the key difference, because they tested the engines. They thought, okay, it's the Lamborghini is not much better than this one, but they should have kept in mind that maybe, pairing it with the likes of Senna and Andretti probably would have made Chrysler put more money into it and probably develop the engine a bit more.
Well, Lamborghini and Chrysler put a lot of effort into try to woo McLaren. They actually developed. They were developing a new power plant, a new V12 for them, and then they found out, like everybody else,
Peter Lavak is doing something really weird here. He's snaking around the straights.
Oh, jeez.
I think his tires are really, really gone. Really gone. He's having
Maybe
a really hard
the car
time
got
controlling.
some kind of damage in the suspension. He's correcting it when it picks speed. Because despite going fast... Oh.
We didn't see him hit anything, but it's a possibility. Anyways, I think Greg is now on his last lap.
Look at that. Really snaking on the straights. Like this. Wow.
Yes, he is.
Oh, that car seems to be really damaged. He's so tantalizingly close from that get podium position, and yet so far, given how he struggles with the car. Anything can happen. Not braking area.
Yes, at this point he's not driving an F1, but a D1 drift machine.
Oh, look at that. We just mentioned it, and there you go. Oh,
yes,
that's big drama. Inside of the finish line.
Look at that. It's really, really skating around. But fortunately for him, he doesn't have much more to go, because Greg crossed the line and he won the last race of the season, the Canadian Grand Prix all season. Champion won the last race. And let's see if Lavak can make it without any big dramas here. Jake's already crossed the line in third, Drechler in a fine 8th.
Greg is doing his donuts, and while his last lap was very, very slow, just to be safe, I can tell you that in the previous lap, in lap 68 of the race, Greg did 1:36.1.
That's amazing.
Even with destroyed tires.
Well, and that goes to show that indeed he won the battle of tires in relation to Lavak, who is still snaking his car as he enters the front straight, and he finishes a brilliant second for him, despite all these problems at the end.
That's a very relieved man right now.
I'm sure he is. So David Jakes is third, Gerard Dion fourth, Vincent Beretta fifth, and Michał Janak with his point in sixth. These were the point scorers. Also finishing Yves Placé seventh, Michał Drechler eighth, Emmanuel Haas ninth, and Juha Boss in 10th. So congratulations to all the finishers. Congratulations to everyone who took part in this championship. And congratulations to the champion, Greg Lassin. I hope we will see you all F1 lovers again next year. And congratulations to Ben and Alberto for helping with these broadcasts, for making all this possible. And Jason, of course, he is here too. And to everyone involved.
You guys did an excellent job broadcasting these races throughout the year, and Ben, excellent direction too of the images. It was fantastic work.
Thank you guys too. And the only thing I can say to everyone, as Ricardo already said, expect more of this next year.
Yep.
Indeed, and expect us covering these races again next year. So we say goodbye. So long, everyone. And we will meet again very, very soon indeed.
So long, everyone.